Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Douglas Shields. I'm a member of Pittsburgh City Council, and I welcome to the fair city of Pittsburgh, the first city to ban hydraulic fracturing operations in the world. We're very proud of it. I'd like to offer you some thoughts on the matter. I did work as a litigation paralegal doing regulatory work on the commercial side before I got into government 20 years ago. This is not unfamiliar territory to me, the 160-page piece. It does cause me some concern, however, in being familiar with the regulatory process and the comment period and so forth. Unfortunately, most of the public could not interpret this in a reasonable fashion without some effort of a public education and information program. So while I do certainly appreciate the EPA coming forward to get comment on this, it's difficult for the population in general to do so without benefit of some sort of educational program on the part of the EPA to have a broader discussion with the community before you take testimony. Right. I can assure you that even if we read this on the technical aspects, and we have your technical advisor there as well, is it would be difficult for them to assess whether or not the pneumatic valve was appropriate or not appropriate or whatever. But that being said, I'll offer these thoughts to you. The EPA is charged with protecting we, the people, from harmful exposures and toxic substances introduced into the environment, largely due to industrial and commercial activities and processes. By law, you are charged with creating emission standards to provide, as you note in this, in your rule, ample margin of safety that protects the public health and applies the level of, quote, individuals most exposed as to what you're trying to resolve, not someone that lives 4 miles away. Volatile organic compounds, VOCs, have long been known to be harmful to people as well as other life forms that live amongst us. This rule is long overdue. I thank the EPA for promulgating the new rule. However, you are not here today because you did your due diligence and acted proactively. You're here, according to this, as a result of a court action and consent order brought forward by citizens. You're here as a result of citizens who filed lawsuits alleging that the EPA failed to meet obligations to do their job. This is a concern of mine and the people I represent in the city of Pittsburgh. The EPA cannot simply be a spectator as to what's going on under its nose. The people of this country fund the EPA to do its job while we go about our daily lives and do ours. My thanks go to the citizens who went to court to get the government to do what it was supposed to do in the first place, and I appreciate that. But be that as it said, I do appreciate your role in government. I do appreciate the staff work that went into this. I've spent a couple of days going over it and certainly found it to be cogent. I found it to be productive, and certainly it engendered my support. However, there's no real cogent regulatory environment to manage or protect ourselves from adverse effects of shale gas exploration in Pennsylvania, throughout shale plays in the United States. I've reviewed the proposed rule. I find it to be meaningful and helpful. The standards of review for making this new rule are clear, and the proposed rule is consistent with the core mission of the EPA and the laws and regulations already in place. The cost-benefit analysis is particularly sound and logical. I hope that in future the EPA will aggressively do whatever is necessary to protect us from harm and to ensure that lawful standards are upheld. I do not wish to take you to court to make you do your job. There is another standard of review will be set forth by the industry that will no doubt find fault with the proposed change. The argument will be giving it's onerous and burdensome without proof and in contradiction of your own cost-benefit analysis. While you have already set forth the evidence that these standards are attainable, they will still argue that this is going to kill jobs. And in fact, not enacting this rule will kill people. That's clear by your record. The gas drillers operating in Pennsylvania are making profits beyond our wildest dreams. Range Resources, for instance, reports in their 2010 fourth quarter results that they have, quote, 86% of their capital budget in play in the Marcellus, end quote, and are making, quote, 50% rate of return on our investment, end quote, period. It's amazing, end quote. That's Mr. Pinkerton, CEO. The gas industry invokes a variety of sound bites that upon analysis mean nothing. For example, I hear, this is a game changer. Well, I'd like to know what the game was and what it is now. I hear, this is a bridge fuel, without any clear public policy as to where this so-called bridge is taking us. And I hear about jobs and money without being warned that our health is threatened.
Mr. Shields, I'm sorry your time has expired.
Very good. I'll let the record speak for itself. I appreciate your time. And I do have the Range Research 10Q. If somebody's going to tell you they're not making money, this will astound you, and maybe you might want to buy some stock in the company.
Concerns about health complaints is long-standing. Congress held hearings in 2007 in Texas, but the extent and cause of health issues still remain unknown. Neither states nor federal government have systematically tracked reports from people or comprehensive investigations on how drilling affects human health. Now, I find it very ironic that this industry, which has been exempted from the Clean Air, Clean Water and the Superfund Act, continues to tell us that by monitoring or putting safety standards on our health and the communities that they are operating in is a detriment to their profits. And I find it hard to believe that we as citizens have the burden of proof to show how dangerous these activities are. Right. I don't think it's up to us to prove how dangerous it is when I have friends who can't be here today because they are home suffering their children's nosebleeds every day. They have found benzene, all kinds of chemicals, barium, arsenic in their urine and blood samples. They are under gag orders and in lawsuits, so they can't be here to speak because they've been threatened that their lawsuit would be compromised. Today we have a new form of buffalo in Pennsylvania. It's a big plastic white water buffalo that is dotting the landscape all over rural Pennsylvania. They were putting them in the front yards, and you can see them all through Luzerne, Susquehanna Valley, Bradford County. Now they're starting to put them in the backyards because they're becoming too obvious. I've heard stories where if people come forward and tell the media about this problem of not having clean water, that their water buffaloes will be taken away. My friends whose children never had asthma and due to this day is due to what you see here, because this is where they live. I would beg you to please do the job that you are paid to do, because we citizens who are volunteering, I'm taking another day off of work to be here, are getting tired of trying to just protect our health, our safety, and our welfare. And it is time for the federal government to step up, because we are getting nowhere with our legislators, our governor, our state reps, or our congressmen in Pennsylvania. Right. So until we do get some help, and this industry is held accountable for what it is doing in poisoning the cities and the communities of the people living near these drilling activities, we are not going to stop. We are not going to stop this fight, and we are going to continue to make this movement grow until something is done. And if something isn't done immediately, these are irreversible damages that are being done to our water supply and in our air. So I urge you to please take these proofs that we have seriously, because this isn't something that we're going to be able to fix overnight. And I doubt that any of us want the legacy of ruining the environment for our children and their children, because this isn't just our land, it's our land for generations to come. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your time. No questions. Great.
This industry that claims to be a game changer, and it certainly is, but what's the game?
Sure.
And what are we changing to? The other thing is that I can, from my background both in government and private sector, is that there's no cogent regulatory scheme, if you will, to account for that. It's not for me to tell them what to do, singularly. It's for us as a society to make a determination on what are the risks and what are these benefits and what risks are out there that pose significant threats to human health. They're there.
Sure.
And unfortunately, throughout the course of this debate, the burden seems to always shift to the people who have limited resources to fight that fight. There are institutions of government that, at the very best, should be a fair witness to all this and even-handed, have joined hands with the industry and walked down that path with them, leaving the interests of the public behind.
Okay. What are your suggestions for the gas companies as far as emissions?
Well, I could give them thousands of them. And one of them being in here, and I'm going to be really interested in pay attention to what the industry people have to say about this promulgated rule and during its comment period. If it follows true to course, they're going to fight, kick, and scream. They're going to claim that it's a deal killer, it's a job killer, and so forth. But also, I mean, amongst these papers I have the Range Resources fourth quarter results of 2010, wherein Mr. Pendergast, the CEO, proudly announces that they have 86% of their capital budget in play in a very unregulated, untaxed Pennsylvania, and they're making a 50% rate of return on the investment. Consistently, industry, no matter what it is, will always come out and say, oh, if we have to do this, this will kill the whole industry. That's baloney, plain and simple. And people want some plain and simple answers to their questions as to why they have benzene in their blood. Why do they have arsenic in their well? Why has their stock been affected in country? So my message is to the shale gas industry is this. Knock off the baloney. Knock off, this is not government by talking point. These are serious issues and they need to be resolved. That's my message to them. My suggestions, I'll keep them to myself for the
All right.
moment.
Now, if this new regulation passes through in its entirety, is that something that you would consider a win? Is that enough? Is that to the point where you would say, okay, this is a positive influx, and we're happy with this. We'll let it go
Let's
for a
be
little while.
mindful of why this regulation's here. This regulation's on the table because citizens went to federal court in 2009 and successfully convinced the court that the EPA, one, was not doing its job and it better start doing it. And so as a result of that court action by individuals, not the EPA, that we moved the ball down a couple of yards on the field with regard to new source emissions on volatile organic compounds. We've got a lot more to do here when it comes to water, where we have no ability for consumer rights to be protected. We heard testimony today about residents that are approached at the kitchen table with no protections at all from their own government, even to like buyer beware. You're pretty much on your own. And that's why I said this is a good step. Anytime you're controlling volatile organic compounds, known carcinogens like benzene, toluene, ethylbenzene, xylene, and downstream from that through this process. Why was it my questions that, well, that's a good thing, yeah, wonderful, we're all going to pat ourselves on the back. This rule should have been in place before they even began these operations and before they gave them these leases and opportunities to drill the heck out of Pennsylvania. Somebody should have done an environmental impact study. Our governments should have been doing health risk assessments to make a determination based on modeling, not on guinea pigs that are out in our countryside right now suffering with disease. That's what I'm not happy about. Am I happy the rulemaking process is here? Absolutely. But it's only on a very, very narrow aspect of a host of issues presented by tight gas or shale gas extraction.